Hello and welcome to Backyard Food Guide. What I'd like to do today is to talk about a watermelon that can be grown in a container. It is a hybrid Asian watermelon called the Mini Love, and these look really cool in that you're able to actually grow watermelon in a container. So it is a shorter vine compared to some other watermelon, approximately 3 to 4 feet, and it is a fairly compact vine as well. So unlike regular watermelon, which is quite sprawling, this can be grown in a compact way in a pot. Each plant produces about 4 to 6 fruit, and the fruit weigh 3 to 6 pounds. So it should yield a good amount of watermelon in one single plant. The fruit is very sweet and beautiful. It has a deep red flesh, and the rind is thin but also relatively strong, so it shouldn't crack very easily. The Mini Love watermelon has a high sugar content, and that means then that you get a very sweet and crisp red flesh in the melon themselves, and it sounds super tasty. So what you want to do is to put them either in a large container or in your garden bed. So what I'm doing is fitting 4 into our small garden bed, and in terms of containers, what you want to do is use a nursery pot, and I would recommend a 10-gallon nursery pot, so approximately 16 inches in diameter and minimum of 12 inches deep. So that would be approximately a 10-gallon container. If you have space for one that's a little bit bigger, that might even be better. Some people argue maybe 7-gallon, but I would go with the 10 to be on the safe side, just because if you're hoping to get 4 to 6 fruit, you're going to need to give it some space. The seed to harvest time is relatively reasonable for these as well, so approximately 7 to 80 days to get full ripened fruit. I highly recommend that you have a sunny, warm spot. After all, melon is a warm weather fruit, and you want to keep it fairly well watered as well. Watermelon tends to have fairly shallow roots. So what you want to do is to water at least once a day, and if the temperature gets a little bit warmer, then I would recommend even twice a day. So keep an eye on it. Obviously, you don't want the roots to get waterlogged. You don't want to overwater, but at the same time, you want to make sure that it stays relatively moist. So that watering regime until you get the fruit, and once the fruit is starting to ripen, that's when you're going to want to make sure that you're not overwatering, because overwatering can actually dilute some of the sugar levels in the watermelon. So at that point, you don't want to let it go completely dry either, but you want to make sure that you're not overwatering. It's a good idea to mulch as well in order to keep the soil nice and wet. And melons are fairly heavy feeders. So what you want to do is use an organic fertilizer once a week. So I'm going to be using compost tea or even kelp tea on ours. And so any kind of organic fertilizer that you normally use would be good. Of course, you want to apply the fertilizer right to the soil rather than onto the plant or the leaves themselves. The Mini Love watermelon will have both male and female flowers within one plant. So that means that you don't need to have more than one of the same plant for pollination. So if your container is in a spot where there are bees and butterflies, then nature will likely do the pollination for you. However, in order to make sure things are going well, especially if you don't see a lot of bees or butterflies, you might want to try some hand pollination as well. And once ours is ready, I'll make a video, but there are lots of other websites. If you just Google hand pollination of melons, you should get some good advice on how to do that. So melons do not ripen off the vine. So what you want to do is to make sure that you pick at the exact right time, because if you pick when it's not ripe yet, you're not going to have a very tasty fruit. Whereas if it's overripe, you might end up with something that's very mushy. So one of the things that you want to do is to look at the tendril closest to the fruit. And if that has turned brown, and if the melon's sitting on the soil, the white spot changes from cream to tan, so getting a little bit darker on the underside, then chances are your melon is ready to be picked. So make sure that you're not doing it too early or too late. I'm super excited to grow these. I think it's amazing that you can get 4 to 6 fruit per plant, and certainly the idea of being able to grow in containers is pretty awesome. So please like this video if the information was useful and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.